Remember that winter night in Myeongdong Savannah?
Ah, the night of the Tteokbokki disaster?
Exactly. I still can't believe we ended up in that situation.
Well, getting lost in Seoul's labyrinth of thrill-packed street food stalls is hardly a disaster, Abby. Although the episode did evolve into a mix of comedy and chaos.
We were just trying to satisfy our craving for Tteokbokki, the spicy rice cakes that coax everyone to Seoul's street markets. Ended up at a stall. Looked promising.
Absolutely. I remember the tantalizing aroma, the soft murmurings of fellow foodies, a perfect setup for our dinner escapade.
Until we realized we had actually ordered Hotteok, those sweet stuffed pancakes, instead of Tteokbokki.
Such an unexpected turn of events, challenging our spice-conditioned taste buds with an unexpected burst of sweetness.
Not quite the savory, spicy delight we were hoping for, but definitely a deliciously sweet nightmare.
Turns out, misadventures can lead to unexpected culinary discoveries. The sweet Hotteok, amidst a palette of spicy food, proved to be an out-of-the-blue gastronomic magic.
Food, Savannah, is so much more than just sustenance. It's one of the most intimate ways of understanding a culture's heartbeat, isn't it?
Absolutely, Abby, and there's no better way to sense that pulse than by diving right into the street food scene.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about Seoul, a city where the streets come alive with a symphony of sizzling grills, bubbling broths, and the chatter of satisfied food lovers.
Street food has a way of uniting people, doesn't it? You'll find office-goers and tourists alike, gathered around food carts, nourishing not only their appetites, but also their souls.
That's so true, Savannah. Food stalls in Seoul are like small stages where one can witness Korea's culinary drama unfold with its cast of spicy, sweet, and savory treats.
From spicy Tteokbokki to sweet Hotteok and savory Odeng, these star players showcase the diversity of Seoul street food. Differences in taste, texture, and temperature make every meal an adventure.
There's something about street food that makes it so much more than just grab and go, don't you think?
Yes, they may seem like simple snacks, but each one has a story, a history, and a tradition embedded in its recipe. It's like tasting pieces of Seoul's soul with every bite.
Have you ever thought about why it's so popular, Savannah?
I'm not entirely sure, but I believe it's the intimacy and accessibility that makes it cherished by people. It's a culinary experience that's quick, affordable, and incredibly tantalizing. But Abby, do you think it's just the price and convenience? Or is it about the sense of belonging it creates?
Absolutely. Penny for penny. The experience that Seoul street food delivers far exceeds the actual cost. But I think there's more to it. The joy of watching food cooked right before your eyes, the shared laughter with strangers over a hot meal, the invitation to participate in a local tradition. Street food is one of Seoul's most intimate, welcoming gestures to the world. Street food, Savannah, is where Seoul tunes its culinary rhythm.
I feel you, Abby. The sizzle and pop of the grill, it's music, pure music.
Let's paint the load of flavors in words for our listeners. Tteokbokki, would you start, Savannah?
Tteokbokki, the soul warmer of Seoul. Imagine soft, chubby rice cakes swimming in a fiery red sauce.
An orchestra playing in your mouth. The spice crescendoing with each chew of the pleasantly chewy rice cake.
And the tinkling notes of hard-boiled eggs and fish cakes adding depth and harmony. It's a performance, that bowl of Tteokbokki.
Let's march to the beat of Hotteok now.
Ah, Hotteok. I feel like it's an envelope secretly passing love notes. Notes of cinnamon, honey, brown sugar, and nuts, ensconced in a thin, crispy pancake.
It's crispy on the outside, and the moment you take a bite, the sweet, gooey filling dribbles out like a whisper of secret.
It's quite a romantic dance on your taste buds.
From the passion of Hotteok to the solitude of Odeng?
Odeng, the unassuming, simple, skewered fish cake quietly bobbing in hot broth. It's modest but carries a world of flavors.
It's like each slice carries the joy of the Korean sea. Bright, refreshing, yet with a subtle umami that lingers at the back of your tongue. Pretty enchanting, don't you think?
Abigail, let's delve into what makes these flavorful performances say Seoul.
And name it we shall, Savannah. For instance, Tteokbokki is a marriage of simple ingredients: rice cake, eggs, and spring onions. But it's the fiery red gochujang, Korean chili paste, that turns this ensemble into an intoxicating dance of Taepyeongmu, the classical Korean dance.
Gochujang, the spicy heart of Korean cuisine. It colors everything vibrant.
Yes, this spicy heart wholly imbues Tteokbokki. What would otherwise be straightforward rice cakes are transformed into a gastronomic carnival, with the gochujang conducting the flavors around. And speaking of which, the rice cakes, they share some similarity with Japanese mochi, don't you think, Savannah?
Quite right, Abby. That same glutinous texture, like a culinary bridge between Korea and Japan.
On to Hotteok, then. It's all about the drama of contrast, the caramelized filling against that crisp, golden brown exterior. The technique, it's in the flipping of that pancake, the perfect sear giving it an irresistible crunch.
Abby, it's got me thinking. The syrupy fillings within, aromatic with cinnamon and honey, aren't they akin to the fillings in Japanese taiyaki?
Now that you mention it, yes. Both share that moment of delicious discovery, the exterior hiding a sweet surprise inside.
Now, on to the final leg of our journey, Odeng. The fish cakes technique is its simplicity, and its draw comes from its connection with comfort. Warm broth, steaming fish cake. It's like a warm hug, isn't it?
It truly is, much like the Japanese Odeng, a testament to the essential bond between warmth and comfort food. Have you ever pondered over the origins of Seoul street food?
There's a compelling blend of tradition and transition, isn't there?
Absolutely. Going back to our spicy superstar, Tteokbokki was originally a royal dish in Joseon dynasty. It was not until the post-Korean War era this dish moved onto the streets, from a palace luxury to a people's comfort food.
So, the spiciness we associate with Tteokbokki was a more recent adaptation.
Yes, with the influence of Chinese spices, Tteokbokki went through a flavorful revolution. Today's fiery red tteokbokki, a symbol of resilience, is in many ways a reflection of Seoul's own socio-cultural transition.
And what about Hotteok?
Hotteok. It's a comforting sweetness initially introduced by merchants from Qing, China during the late 19th century. The fusion of Chinese method and Korean taste birthed this pancake we enjoy today. The recipe has largely remained the same, paying a heady homage to its historical beginnings.
It feels like every bite of Hotteok is a story of its own. Does it hold true for Odeng as well?
Oh yes. Often dubbed as the soul food of Seoul, Odeng was introduced during the Japanese colonization. Despite the harsh history, Odeng is always served warm, soothing hearts and stomachs alike. Its resilient spirit symbolizes the strength of Korean people. Don't you think it's interesting how food evolves but at the same time stays true to its roots?
It's fascinating indeed, the narratives etched into every morsel. Cultural transitions baked, boiled and fried into mouthfuls of history. Abigail, isn't it interesting how street food is so integral to Seoul's daily life? I mean, it's not just about the food, but the whole experience itself.
Absolutely. I see what you mean, Savannah. It's about family outings, quick bites before work, shared experiences with friends and strangers. The food stalls, the hustle, and the smoky aroma that fills the air create a unique culinary atmosphere. I think there's no other place like it.
You'll see office workers grabbing a stick of Odeng, popping a Hotteok as they rush in the morning. There's something communal about having your meal in the open, don't you think?
Yes, there's a charm to it. And the media plays a role too. Think about all the Korean dramas out there. They often showcase characters huddled around a street stall, having their cup of Tteokbokki, a standard go-to comfort food. It just underlines the relatability of Seoul street food and has a way of bringing people together.
So true. It's funny though, we don't just consume the food, but also the sentiments attached to it through these shows. By the way, was there a time when you felt a particular food reflected your mood or the atmosphere you were in?
Honestly, yes. Street food has been my comfort food in more ways than one. It's there for me when I am ecstatic, and it's there to elevate me when I have the blues. A bowl of warm Odeng on a cold winter's night is like a bear hug, and biting down the crispy Hotteok filled with gooey sweet happiness. It's hard to explain, but street food's emotional resonance is really powerful. How about you, Savannah?
Couldn't agree more. When I'm feeling adventurous and craving a bold dish, Tteokbokki is my choice. The spiciness is like a challenge that excites me, making a simple mealtime more like an adventure. And it's beautiful how these foods are not just sustenance, but embody our emotions, culture, and everyday living.
Savannah, do you remember your first encounter with Seoul street food?
Oh, how could I forget? It was my first week in Seoul and my university friends decided to give me a taste of the city, quite literally.
And what was that like?
We were at Namdaemun Market. There were stalls lined up with various delicacies. The night was alive with the scent of delicious food. I was quite adventurous and decided to try the Tteokbokki.
Taking on the fiery Tteokbokki, were you prepared for the spice?
Not at all. I didn't know how spicy it would be. I remember taking a bite, and my face turned as red as the Tteokbokki itself.
And yet, here we are, a testament to your resilience. Now you can't get enough of it.
Definitely a journey. What about you, Abigail? Have a memorable first food encounter?
Well, when I first tried Odeng. Being Japanese, I was familiar with fish cakes, so I confidently bit into the skewer expecting familiar taste, only to find that the flavors were quite different, deeper and more complex than what I was used to.
That must have been a surprise for you.
It certainly was. But as you know, these surprises add to the allure of street food. Over time, my palate has adjusted, and now Odeng is one of my favorites.
Abigail, have you ever wondered how the same dish can taste so different across different places in Seoul?
Absolutely, Savannah. That's something I have often marveled at, especially with our beloved street foods.
Right? For instance, Tteokbokki. I have tried it from numerous stalls across the city, and each time it seems to offer a different spice and flavor profile.
That's so true. It's as if each place imparts its unique character into the dish. From my experience, the best Tteokbokki can be found at Gwangjang Market. I find it exceptional, the way they balance the kick of chili with subtle hints of sweetness and the softness of the rice cake. It's irresistible.
Oh, now I'm craving some spicy Tteokbokki. My personal go-to place for it is the Tongin Market. They have this creamy texture and just the right note of sweetness. But I am curious, how does Tteokbokki from Gwangjang Market compare with it?
The Tteokbokki at Tongin Market. I haven't tried that one. I guess I should sometime. But to answer your question, what I love about Gwangjang Market's Tteokbokki is the authenticity it holds. As a foodie, I feel it isn't just about the ingredients or the taste. It's about the story the food tells. Gwangjang's version reminds me of the city's vibrant hustle each time.
That sounds like quite the experience, Abigail. Speaking of authenticity and cultural symbolism, have you ever tried Hotteok from Jongno Street?
I haven't, Savannah. Though I've heard it's supposed to be wonderful. I've mostly frequented the Hotteok stalls around Myeongdong. They make a mean, sweet, stuffed pancake. I love the crunch of the outside layer, filled with melting brown sugar and nuts. That sweetness hitting the warmth. It's such a treat in those chilly evenings.
That definitely sounds tempting, Abigail. But once you try the variety in Jongno Street, you'd be hard-pressed to pick a favourite. They make it with a slightly chewy but thin outer layer, and the inside is filled with a generous amount of sweet syrup and sesame seeds before served piping hot. It's like heaven on a plate.
Savannah, it's actually quite challenging to recommend specific foods to first-time visitors because Seoul's street food varieties run the gamut, don't they?
True, Abigail. First-timers would find a truly kaleidoscopic food culture across the city. Regardless, I'd like to start with something unique yet representative of the street food vibe.
Oh, and what would that be?
Food carts selling bunjeo pang. It's a fish-shaped pastry with sweet red bean paste inside. With the eye-catching shape and sizzling delight in every bite, bunjeo pang symbolizes the playful spirit of Seoul's street food. Especially in winter, it's heartwarming and fulfilling.
You read my mind, Savannah. Bunjeo pang is definitely a must-try for newcomers. But when it comes to another unique, perhaps odd at first, should we dare mention the famous silkworm pupae?
Oh my, you mean beyondagi? I think that's veering too radically adventurous for some beginners, but honestly, once you get used to them, they can be an exciting little snack.
I second that. And before we forget, how about gimbap? Similar to a sushi roll, these little rice parcels with seaweed paper and fillings like vegetables, egg, and ham are sheer on-the-go delight.
I was just about to mention those. Of course, the variety of gimbap is aplenty, and they are conveniently packed for a busy city's eating habits. In fact, each street may have a gimbap variation of their own.
Exactly. And have you noticed that every street stall seems to have its own unique take on these classics?
Right. They do say that food is an illustrator of ever-evolving culture, and the nuances in these street food varieties support that.
Couldn't have put it better myself, Savannah. Savannah, it's hard not to make a bit of a mess while enjoying these street foods, right?
Definitely, Abigail, but that's part of the fun. Yet, a small trick is to use napkins or gloves that usually come with these delights. It's a neat way to enjoy Hotteok or Tteokbokki without staining your clothes.
Oh, that's a clever hack. Plus, what about those chopsticks sticking out of Odeng or Tteokbokki bowls?
Great point! Those chopsticks could be tricky for some, but the best way to navigate through it is to rotate your wrist, not your fingers. Chopsticks are quintessential to Korean dining, and with a bit of practice, they are a real game changer.
Yes, wrist rotation is the secret. But I also find plastic gloves quite handy. They save you from BBQ sauce splatters and the fierce heat of chili powder on Tteokbokki. What do you say?
Indeed, Abigail. Plastic gloves are absolute lifesavers, especially for us ladies who might be concerned about nail care. But while we are at it, aren't some dishes quite spicy?
Ah, yes, the notorious Korean spice kick. For those wanting to tone down the heat, ordering a side of processed cheese as a topping often does the trick. It adds a creamy texture and balances out the spiciness. You might want to give it a shot, Savannah.
I will surely try that the next time, Abigail. But do remember, folks, whatever mess or challenges you encounter while relishing these flavorful servings, it is all part of the wonderful culture of Seoul street food. So, have fun and munch on.
But Savannah, what if I'd love to try these Seoul street flavors at home? Let's say I'm craving some spicy Tteokbokki in the middle of the night here in Seoul. Or else you might be longing for that sweet bite of Hotteok way over in Busan.
Oh, Abigail, you just brought up a great point. Existing in different cities doesn't mean we can't bring these Seoul savories to our respective neighborhoods. Ready to whip up these culinary wonders at home?
Oh, I'm absolutely thrilled to learn. So where do we start? Maybe with Tteokbokki, my spicy favorite?
Sure, a nice plate of tteokbokki can usually be prepared with some seafood broth, gochujang, Korean red chili paste, sugar, and of course everyone's favorite, the tteokbokki rice cakes. Quick tip, roughly mash those cakes before cooking so they absorb the sauce better. That's the essence behind our favorite street stall version, right?
Savannah, I just can't wait to attempt this at home and recreate that delightful burst of flavor. Do you have any special guideline for cooking Odeng?
Yes, Abigail. For Odeng, you first need to create a delicious soup base with dried anchovies, dashima, and soy sauce. The trick is to simmer gently and strain the soup and then add your fish cakes. The slow cooking of the broth gives it a depth of flavor that makes it irresistible when served piping hot.
Bingo. That does seem doable. And what about that sweetness of Hotteok that I so dearly miss?
Simple, really. All you need is flour, dry yeast, salt and milk for the dough, and for the stuffing, white sugar, honey, chopped peanuts, and a pinch of cinnamon do the magic. Roll the dough into balls and flatten it, then fill with the sweet filling and grill until golden. Believe me, you'll recreate those heavenly bites in no time.
Phew, that sounds so amazing, Savannah. With these easy-to-follow tips, we're surely bringing little taste of Seoul to our doorsteps. Anyone attempting these at home, remember, the joy is all in the journey of cooking. Now let's talk about the art of navigating street food in Seoul. It's not just about the food. There's a whole experience attached to it. Savannah, as someone who moved to Seoul at a young age, what tips do you have?
That's an interesting point, Abigail. Walking those bustling food streets, the trick is to be patient and embrace the chaos. It's a sea of aromas, sounds, and people. Just take it all in, one sensory experience at a time. Just remember, if you spot a stall with quite a queue, it's usually worth the wait.
Oh, absolutely. The people of Seoul love their food, and they sure know how to pick the best stalls. And about the spiciness, that might be a tough tackle for some.
Indeed, Abigail. Seoul street food does pack a spicy punch. One useful tip to deal with the heat is always to have a drink on hand. An ice-cold beverage can be a lifesaver, trust me.
While enjoying the street food extravaganza, we must also remember to respect the local etiquette. Savannah, any advice there?
Right, Abigail. In Seoul, it's typical to eat on the go. It's okay to just grab your food and keep on exploring the lanes. But remember to clean up after yourself and make way for other food lovers.
And importantly, let's address food allergies. It's crucial to know the ingredients, given the use of seafood and soy-based sauces prevalent in Korean cuisine.
Absolutely, Abigail. It's important to be aware of your allergies and dietary restrictions. Do a little research before you hop on the culinary train. Ask the vendors or simply stick to the goodies you are familiar with. That way the street food experience in Seoul remains colourful and fun-filled.
Savannah, when do you think is the best time for food tourists to visit Seoul?
Well, while Seoul's vibrant food culture offers something delightful year-round, I suggest spring and autumn, primarily from April to June and September to November. The moderate weather during these times makes food hopping comfortable, and the seasonal ingredients make dishes even more interesting.
Excellent. Now, moving to food tours, how can our listeners have a wholesome experience without breaking the bank?
As much as we love going to the high-end restaurants, street food has its own allure. Luckily, affordable food tours are plentiful in Seoul. Mingle with the locals on the Old Downtown Street Food Tour, or explore traditional markets with the Seoul Food Walk Tour. They provide insights into local culture, history, and the food scene, of course, all under $30.
Wow, that's quite a steal. Now, as for sightseeing and food, any recommendations on routes?
One of my personal favorites is starting at Gyeongbokgung Palace. From there, take a walk to Tteokbokki for some authentic ginseng chicken soup, and then move towards Bukchon Hanok village. Nearby, you'll find great places for traditional Korean snacks and desserts. Continue to Samcheongdong for cafes and bistros that offer great food with a fantastic view. Lastly, don't miss Insadong for memorable souvenirs and Tteokbokki. So Abigail, what truly sets Seoul's culinary scene a notch above is the vibrant night markets. What's your take on that?
Absolutely, Savannah. The night markets are a spectacle. You're welcomed by a flurry of sizzling sounds, a riot of colors, and a mishmash of tantalizing aromas. The markets are brimming with life and adventure, encapsulating the true essence of Seoul's culinary culture. From the glinting DIY lamps lighting up the alleyways, to the metallic clinking of utensils, and the chatter of the locals, everything seems to add a layer of enchantment to the experience.
So true. And the food. It's like a whole new universe of taste. So diverse and tantalizing. But as a first-time explorer, it can be a bit overwhelming. Any tips, Abigail?
Great point, Savannah. Here's my pro tip. Dive in head first. Start with what catches your eye or wafts your way. But remember, the food in night markets is street food, so it might be spicy or completely unfamiliar. While that's part of the adventure, if you're not big on surprises, ask the vendors about the dishes. They'll be more than happy to share.
That's practical advice, Abigail. Thank you. Also, as a foreigner, it might be helpful to learn a few Korean phrases to engage with the vendors and locals. It just enhances the experience, doesn't it?
All right, time for some fun Seoul street food trivia to wrap things up. Savannah, can you guess what unique function Hotteok served in the ancient times?
Interesting. Given its sweet and stuffed nature, maybe it was an ancient dessert.
Close, but not quite. It was originally called Hotteok, translating to rice cake for beggars. It was initially provided as an affordable but filling snack for those less fortunate.
That's eye-opening. It tells us so much about the history of Seoul and social structure during that time. It surely ignites curiosity about how food tells the story of a place. Now on to the second trivia. Do you know fourth item on the list of National Intangible Cultural Heritage of Korea?
I'm not quite certain. Some form of traditional dish, I guess?
It might be surprising to some, but it's the traditional technique of making bindetteok, a mung bean pancake that's a popular street food item. You see, food isn't just about the taste buds, but also the culture and heritage, isn't it?
Absolutely. You've given me a whole new perspective, Savannah. Conversations like these make our culinary adventures all the more exciting.
Couldn't agree more. And to keep this shared food adventure alive, how about this final trivia for our listeners? What's the surprising connection between Tteokbokki and politics?